So let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm Mo. My journey started in 2013 when I co-founded a virtual restaurant, scaled it to over 1 million customers in 4 European markets, left the company. We sold it a bit later, and almost at the same time, in early 2022, I started Twain. Twain is a copywriter for outbound at scale. We got stupidly lucky with timing. ChatGPT came out briefly after we launched and basically changed the whole world overnight, which was great for us. And today, we are striving and surviving in generative AI. It has been a wild ride. And I hope I get to share some of the things that we learned today that you hopefully can apply for your go-to-market strategy. So let's start. What is go-to-market? We will start with an overview and introduction to go-to-market in general. Then the difference between product-led and sales-led and everything in between, your buyer, and then how AI has changed all these things. Now, a big disclaimer. Everything I'm going to talk about is just based on my personal experience. I'm constantly wrong. And honestly, I have very strong opinions. So please always have your own filter. Take everything with a grain of salt. And this is actually similar to Julia. This is about B2B. I've seen probably multiple, let's say, sizes, but mostly small to medium size. So go-to-market explained. That's basically your merchandise journey. It starts with your vision. We have R&D, product management, and then go-to-market starts at product marketing, demand generation, and sales. That's what we're going to focus on today. Product marketing is typically what's your story? What are the emotions that are attached to your brand? What do you want your customer to think about you, your company, your brand, your product? How are you different? How are you positioning yourself? And where are you visible? Where do people hear about you? Where do they see about your brand? Demand generation, it gets a little more serious. How do we generate demand? Before that, it's awareness. But how do we actually generate demand? What is our funnel? How do we understand our funnel? How do we understand our conversion rates from the top all the way to the bottom to closing it? How do we qualify prospects and so on? And then sales is probably the one that's like, let's say, most widely known. The terms in sales, this is obviously about pipeline. This is about sales and typically the revenue leader being responsible for forecasting, quota attainment, all the stuff. How is the territory built up? What kind of productivity model do you have? All this kind of stuff. Now, before 2025, let's say, mostly go-to-market was separate in 2 teams, marketing and sales. Product marketing was pretty clearly in marketing, and then demand generation was somewhat in between, and then sales was in revenue. That often leads to issues with communication, issues with diagnosis. So whenever you have your funnel and something is wrong, and there's typically always something wrong, and always we can do better, it was often hard to understand where exactly the problem is. You often have teams that are misaligned in their communication. Sometimes even the team leaders are protecting their own team's interests or their own teams over the interests of the overall organization. But many, many times, no one has bad intentions. It's just bad communication. Now, that was typically go-to-market and some of the many problems that were caused by that. What we saw and what we're going to talk about here and what I'll showcase is that what AI has achieved is that a lot of the real return has been in productivity. So for example, when we look at research in go-to-market, infrastructure in go-to-market, data in go-to-market, and messaging in go-to-market, which is Twain's part, many, many times we saw that actual real return on investment was a productivity return on investment. And I'll explain what that has led to. So what we see today is something that is called unified go-to-market. So we went from like separate teams to one team where the whole process of go-to-market from product marketing to sales is one team. That has also led to a new function or a new title that was born that's called the go-to-market engineer. And the go-to-market engineer is more technical than, for example, account manager, an SDR, or on the other side, demand generation or head of product marketing whatsoever. And that leads to smaller teams because a go-to-market engineer typically has some technical ability, but limited. Why did AI enable this? Because a lot of things started to be possible based on prompting. So you didn't have to fully understand how to code, but you somehow needed some understanding in like, okay, how do I communicate with this machine? What automation tools and so on are available? So that was actually a really important move in the go-to-market space. Now, before AI, we had to separate between product-led, sales-assisted, and product-assisted as some kind of in the middle. And then on the other side, very clearly, sales-led go-to-market motions. Obviously, product-led, the product is selling the value. The user had to have aha moments on their own. It is typically a very short cycle, sometimes days, sometimes weeks, typically just one stakeholder, sometimes even like an impulsive buy. And the average contract value, which often drove your motion or the motion that will work, was clearly under 10,000. Now, sales assistant is some kind of like in the middle, where it's like around 10K, you needed some kind of support. You had one to a few stakeholders, and the human was more like a problem solver and like helping you understand what problem you have and what problem we will solve together. Where more on the enterprise side, it's more like a consultant, like someone helping you, okay, how can we actually even introduce this product and help you achieve what you want to achieve, where the average contract value also had to be very clearly above 10K, multiple stakeholders, months to years. Now, this was often very much driven by how your product was priced. Why? Because many of the activities in your go-to-market strategies are either very cheap on the product-led side or quite expensive on the sales-led side. So we were hearing, for example, about events working really well on the enterprise side. Now, what we see today is that all of this is kind of being completely mixed up, because I was mentioning a bit earlier that a lot of things that AI achieved in go-to-market are these productivity gains. And some things that were quite expensive before, activities, are now way, way cheaper because AI has made the individual or the organization, the revenue organization, way, way more productive. So we now have like smaller teams, and we now have AI that is working by, for example, changing that previously very expensive things are now very affordable. And I'll give you a few examples. Now, AI in go-to-market today, for example, we already heard about Clay. For Clay's value proposition is unique data at scale. Our value proposition are like unique emails at scale. Synthetia's value proposition is unique videos at scale. All of these things that took a lot of time previously are now basically you just need one individual and you can scale all of these activities. And that is something that is actually working today in go-to-market in AI. And what we saw work for us and for many, similar products is the following: that the productivity ROI has worked really, really well in communicating with our clients, but also seeing who is succeeding. So when our client was looking at simply scaling what they are already doing successfully, it worked really well. A usage-based pricing has worked really well because it takes away some of the risk. So it's more transparent and it's easier to understand, okay, what I'm going to spend using this very novel technology. And then the last thing that is very important, a human-in-the-loop approach. So we need to understand what the limitations of AI are today and understand how can we still make it work like for our customers or, of course, for us in our product. So why does it matter? It exactly tells you what has not worked so far. And that is that AI can't fix non-existent product market fit. We saw it with customers that we onboarded, but also obviously with like in the market. When you don't have product market fit, when you don't have, maybe you are not targeting the right audience, maybe your value proposition is not correct, maybe you don't even have a market, then AI can also not fix that, and our product could also not fix that. It is too risky today based on AI's accuracy and also our human knowledge on how to use AI to let AI act autonomously. This has often proven to not be ready. So, and then the last thing is, and I think that's not that obvious, but it's very, very interesting, AI can't handle really like just bad data right now. So we tried it and we worked a lot on helping our customers, but it is very clear that today, the better your inputs are and the more you help AI, the better your outputs will be. I do believe that this will change. I do believe that these models will get smart enough to understand your intention, and then based on your intention, also be able to handle bad data inputs. Now, something you'll notice here, I'm only going to talk about the headlines. Our headline is Copywriter for Outbound at Scale. Clay's headline, go to market with unique data and the ability to act on it. And Synthesia, turn text to video in minutes. Now, why did I show you these three examples of the headline, which is like your most important copy on your website? Let's talk a little bit about the buyer today and what we are seeing. We believe that the default starting point right now is that buyers are very suspicious. They have seen a lot of fancy demos, but many times it was just that. It was just a fancy demo. So we intentionally never mention AI in our like most prominent headline and copy. And the reason why is because we believe this is just technology and we should focus on what Twain is. So our brand, for example, we have like a Twain.ai domain, and then sometimes this leads to people calling Twain AI. And I hate to correct people, but this is very important because we learned brand is very important. So that's actually a moment where I tell them it's just Twain. Because that's what matters, is that we are an outbound copywriter. So this is really, really important. That's like a really big point I would like to convey today, is that think about what your product is without the AI in it, and focus and understand how your customer feels about like the whole market, not only about you. So, and the last point here is that what we see all the time is that a lot of people are just reaching out to us and booking demos or messaging us because they have FOMO. They don't have a problem and they are not our buyer. And that's actually, that's probably something that will always happen to like when you're building something exciting, when you're at a startup, you know, a lot of times this is something new and people are interested and they want to learn about what's out there. But especially when you're building in AI right now, a lot of people feel FOMO and they just want to like know what's going on. And they will actually waste your time. So you always need to qualify your buyers all the time. Now, To sum up, go-to-market motions are kind of mixed up, like the old model of ACV driving exactly what you're doing in terms of activities. You should question that. Of course, sometimes it's still very clear that you have a product-led or a sales-led or product-assisted sales motion, but you should really question that, because today we have AI and AI works because these are the return on investments in productivity. And you should really question what will work for you. So this advice, in my opinion, is outdated because of the tools we have today. Now, the next thing is these three tools should be one. These three functions should be one. It should be one team moving forward, and go-to-market should be unified. It should be in one team, and it should be go-to-market engineering. And today, with smaller teams, we can achieve more. And I talked about like the buyer's skepticism and like that they doubt and all these trust issues through fancy demos that didn't really deliver. At the same time, I want to share that I believe there's an incredible opportunity at hand right now. We can see it every single day. And if you've ever built or started a company in a different space, you can feel the difference like tenfold, because it's wild. People have actual appetite on using and leveraging AI in their business. They do have budgets, and it feels like a lot of things feel outdated to the buyer, like maybe technology that they are using right now, their tech stack. And it feels like everything is up for grabs because people are just reviewing what they're doing. And a lot of times we can ship way better solutions at a way more competitive price point as well, and with a different pricing. For example, a usage-based pricing, value-based and outcome-based pricing. And and I would, when you like in every part of your unified go-to-market, always focus on the real ROI. I believe if you focus on like communicating and understanding how your product actually works well and predictably works well, not only in a demo, but if you give it to your customer and they use it, or obviously if you onboard them, you will win. I think that there's an incredible opportunity. Now, something very actionable that I loved is Sequoia is a venture capital firm, and they launched this or put out this framework. And it's really helpful to just look at it and ask yourself, how would you categorize your product? Because in every category, you'll have different challenges. And for example, in our category, we have like a lot of awareness for the problem. Copywriting for a lot of marketing and sales teams is a big issue. Researching and then personalizing the message and then reviewing it and getting feedback from the manager, like that's like a really big pain, and a lot of people don't enjoy it. So we are like a hair on fire. They want help. They want help right now. The challenge that we have is that it's a very crowded market. It's very noisy. Honestly, you have to have like a very thick skin to survive this. And that's where we believe we have to be the best-in-class solution, because people will switch like this if you are not. So, but there are like very different challenges. So, for example, we don't have to convince people that they have a problem. That's So that might be the case for you. So some general thoughts based on building in this space, and obviously my whole journey as a founder. Distraction is the default mode. So focus is not a default mode. You have to constantly, intentionally focus yourself and focus the people around you, especially in AI. There will be competitors everywhere. There will be cool tech and big funding rounds all the time. So you always have to remember, take deep breaths and remember that you are by default distracted and that you have to focus, and only through focusing through a really long time, you'll succeed. And honestly, don't go crazy, because it is wild. Competition is fierce. We have incredible timing, but that often means like it's a very obvious, incredible timing. That often means that there are just a lot of people building in that space, and you should just be aware of it. And honestly, if you're not in it to like being willing to compete and being willing to like look at it like a marathon, because it is a marathon, then potentially you should not even get started because it's going to be really tough. And then the last thing is the fact that you're sitting here is already crazy because we are incredibly, incredibly early. There's just one product that has achieved mass market adoption, and that's ChatGPT, which is wild. You can be sure that we are so early, and this might be a hype cycle, you know, it might flatten again, but the technology is really incredible. And again, we already see real return on investment. We have very successful customers that are using our product and are becoming bigger and bigger customers for us, which gives us a lot of confidence. But just be aware that we are so early and cut yourself some slack because there's so many things that we have to figure out and like really figure out from scratch. For example, some of the typical user experience best practice and also user interfaces just don't work with generative AI. So we have to figure out all these things over and over again. Or when you work with enterprise, you have to understand how to communicate with them, like maybe from zero, which is like super interesting, but like these are very new challenges and be patient. And now the last thing, I'm happy to answer a few questions, just the last thing. If this was like some kind of like interesting for you and you want to see like how we continuously build a product, you can join us on March 19th where we'll ship a new version and also we'll share basically everything we learned because we pivoted a few times, iterated a lot until we got on this growth trajectory we are on right now. And that's going to be like very, very cool. So yeah, feel free to join us. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to share.